Hello, everyone, and inside the latest Locked On Canadiens, it is our end of the season awards.
Your Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1060 of Locked On Canadiens, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You may be wondering, who is this guy talking to me? I am Scott Matla. I am one of the hosts of Locked On Canadiens. My co-host is suffering from an internet outage up in Montreal, so you are once again stuck with just little old me, who's afraid of little old Scott on this podcast here. Kind of had to change things. Laura had a great topic idea. We're going to talk a little bit later on this week, I think, about the standard of play-by-play commentary. What do we want from broadcast? But I wanted to shift gears a little bit in this one. Keep it simple, kind of keep not the list of things going here, but we talked about the mock draft in the last episode. What happens if they win the lottery on Monday? Today's show is all very simple. It's our end of the year awards. We've got 3 segments here. We're going to do prospects, we're going to do the AHL, and then we're going to do the NHL at the end there, because there's a lot to talk about in that. And I want to just keep that nice and simple overall here. And as always, we want to hear from you. Who are your players of the year in the prospect pool, the AHL, the NHL, across the board? We want to hear from you. You can tweet us at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. We may read some of these out as the end of the week when we have a very special mailbag with a very special friend of ours as well. But let's just kind of jump right into things. And this was probably the one that I thought on the most overall. The Player of the Year award for Locked On Canadiens for the prospect pool. And there are a lot of prospects in the Montreal Canadiens prospect pool. And this excludes the AHL players. They are in their own separate category. So we can remove that piece out of here. So that leaves the NCAA, that leaves the CHL, that leaves the players playing in Europe and such and beyond. And I got to be honest, this is the one I thought on the longest. And I still think that the name that I'm picking for here shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I think he stood out too much to potentially ignore that. But I do want to talk a little bit about the honorable mentions and why they're going to be in there. But first, for me, my prospect of the year, my, Locked On Canadiens Habs prospect of player of the year, it's going to Lane Hutson. He's just undeniable at this point. He was far and away the best defensive prospect in the system just for that tantalizing skill. And then he came to the NHL. Nobody knew what to expect and just hit the ground running. I think looking at his body of work over last year, which he was great, probably our prospect of the year last year as well, into this year where he improved on some things, got better, had a really strong World Junior showing, a really strong showing for BU. Maybe he didn't hit the same lofty highs as last year, but that is okay because there's more to his game now. He stepped up into a new way and a new role that is allowing him to thrive. Far and away my prospect of the year, and I don't think it was particularly close in terms of this, but right behind him, I think Adam Engstrom is actually going to end up being my one of my honorable mentions here. I think that he is someone I'm very excited for. There's some raw things that need ironing out. Same with any of these other prospects in the system here. But I look at the minutes he played and I look at the steps that he's taken since being drafted by Montreal. His team unfortunately lost 4-1 in the SHL finals, and the Rocket are obviously not in the playoffs. So we are now waiting for next year on Adam Engstrom. But I think Engstrom is on my podium of prospects as well. Bogdan Konyushkov as well. Someone that I want to watch more of, because the game that I watched, I understand why that offensive upside is there, but I saw some things that it's like, oh, those are things that need to be fixed. Those are glaring flaws defensively. And it's not saying that the Canadiens cannot do that. We've seen them work on that with other players. I think the only person who I think came remotely close besides Adam Engstrom would be Owen Beck too. And it didn't look like that was going to be the case early on this year. Owen Beck in Peterborough was a shadow of what he is and what he can be. We saw it with Mississauga. We saw him be just a dominant force. And with Saginaw, again, he is continuing to be that player. And I actually want to take a look at his stats here because I know Saginaw's in a very tight series with London for the OHL title there. He has 11 points in 14 playoff games and obviously finished with 51 and 32 for Saginaw, 30 and 25 for Peterborough. So that means, if my math here is correct, 57, ended with 81 points in 57 games and then added 11 points so far in the playoffs, while often being their go-to guy. And yes, Saginaw is a stacked team, but I just keep seeing Owen Beck's name pop up. And I see it and I see it and I see it and I see it and I see it. He's someone that I'm so excited about for next season. He just turned 20 in February. I don't know where they're going to put him yet. And that's the part here, is that I don't know where he's going yet. And that's what makes it exciting. He could be their third line center next year in Montreal. He could be the first line Rocket center next year. And that's perfectly okay with me. The biggest thing I think we should all take out of this is that the Montreal Canadiens have a lot of talented prospects in their system here. I'm looking at their in the system thing that includes guys who are down in the AHL as well. Owen Beck, Florian Jacki, Cedric Guindon. And this is all sorted out by points. Jakub Novak, who was a Sens pick, put up 30 goals in the ECHL this year with the Lions. Brandon Gignac, not a prospect. Philippe Maillet, not a prospect. Philip Machar is someone that I think is going to be drawing a lot of eyes next year for a lot of reasons. Is what are you at this point? Are we going to get that next step forward? Again, really strong first half, really good showing at World Juniors, really good playoff showing for Kitchener. Just waiting on a little bit more there. As we continue to go down here, Logan Mailloux we'll talk about in the AHL segment. Elias Anderson, Xavier Simoneau was fast rising on the way up here too. And Joshua had a phenomenal rookie season in the AHL, just not a ton of other and then he went up to the NHL. So it's hard to, figure out where he ranks on here. But I think that overall, going with Beck there, going with Adam Engstrom, and going with obviously Lane Hutson as the first, should kind of highlight where this Canadiens prospect pool is at. We have come a long way from, boy, do I really hope that Nathan Beaulieu makes it, or else we have nothing out of this draft class. We're banking on Ryan White. We need to do this. What is Kyle Chipchura doing? We are a long way away from that. That I'm looking at some of the point totals here, and it's like, this is such a different pool. And not that Marc Bergevin didn't add quality pieces to this. There are some of his draft picks in here as well. That is not to discount that fact. But the work that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton have done, even in the last 2 years, just adding more and more and more pieces to this, is really just truly impressive. And you're going to notice, I didn't mention David Reinbacher. His NLA team in Switzerland, his National League team there, was such a mess that it was hard to know, what are we getting? And in North America, he put up 5 points in 11 AHL games. That's nothing to scoff at across the board there. I think next year is going to be a really big telling season. I think we're in for a big year for David Reinbacher next year. He seems poised to do that. The defensive group is just so incredibly good. And you're going to have someone from the NHL that we talked about who's getting sent down, who's getting traded. You're going to have Reinbacher. You're going to have Engstrom. You're going to have Mailloux again. You're going to have Trudeau back. You're going to add maybe potential Struble back, someone else in free agency. Who knows? They are setting themselves up for a really strong group next year. But I invite people to, disagree with my assertion. Was Lane Hutson not your prospect of the year, not counting the AHL, because the AHL being its own thing? I want to know from you. And I admittedly haven't gotten to watch a lot of these. If I'm going with the most improved in here, Florian Jacki is absolutely that guy. 34 goals, 31 assists in 63 games, just over a point per game. Yeah, he is, not an overager, was picked as an overager, but was, still under 20 there. I think he's going to be a menace in the AHL next year. Speaking of the AHL, we're going to shift gears. We're going to move over to the AHL and discuss, hey, who's the player of the year in the AHL this year? Who stood out? And we're going to get into all that coming up next. But first, passion, drive, and patience is the formula for a winning championship, and it is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you were looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, available only to United States customers. Speaking of being the MVP, you're in the middle of baseball season, you're in concert season, you are in outdoor festival season, and you are looking for tickets for you, your friends, your family. Stand out and just go check out Game Time. It is such a lifesaver. I have been looking for wrestling show tickets or concert tickets or anything, and Game Time took all the guesswork out of that. I was able to go in, see the view from my seat, and be like, this is where I want to enjoy this. This is where I want to bring everybody, that we have the best view in the house. And when I go to check out, I'm not hit with hidden fees. I'm not hit with, oh, there's this and there's this. The price I see is the price I'm paying. And they give me peace of mind that if I get sick or the event has to be canceled because of weather or some act of God, they have you covered. And they have the lowest price guarantee. Always event cancellation protection, job loss protection, everything. Zone deals, all in pricing, seat views, everything. Game Time has you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we're shifting gears now. We're heading into the AHL. We've moved from prospects to slightly older prospects, technically, out of everything here. But as you all know, the AHL is my baby. It is the thing that I pay the closest attention to, the ins and the outs, the team, what's working, what's not. So this is the one time that if you want to disagree with me, that's fair, but I will probably, do the thing where I pull rank, and I think there's an appeal of some kind in there that is some kind of, I've been told I use that on appeal to authority or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, the AHL Player of the Year. The AHL had a lot of very good veteran players this year. They were never all very good at the same time, unfortunately, which is frustrating and aggravating on so many levels for this team. They never really got going, hit December, got on a roll. Wheels kind of fell off late as a younger team. Struggled to kind of keep themselves together here. But it was the young guys that I constantly had to praise on. Not had to. That makes it sound like I'm being forced to praise them. That I would always see and would always go out of my way to praise them. And I think my AHL Player of the Year here is going to go to Jakub Dobeš. And this one was probably the closest one that I've had. Flipping a coin that it could have gone one way or the other. Jakub Dobeš, I thought, was incredible for the Rocket this year when the team around him was not giving him much help. He was a rookie goaltender, often out there kind of fighting in chum-infested waters. And he started this year with a near .870 save percentage. He ended the year playing 51 games, a record for the Laval Rocket, breaking Caden Primo's record, 2.93 goals against, .906 save percentage, 1 shutout, 24-18-6 record. He was immense down the stretch when this team needed him to be. He started off shaky. They got Kazimir Kaskisuo in here, kind of goalie whispered it a little bit, and just everything came together there for them. I thought Dobish was incredible. I think that Kaski Suo coming back next year absolutely makes the most sense. And like I said, this was a coin flip of who the other player is that could have been the player of the year here. Brandon Gignac led the team 55 points in 61 games. Philippe Maillet had 53 and 67. Lias Anderson had 45 and 53. But the name that's omitted in there is for a reason, is that Logan Mailloux is probably my runner-up, or could have easily been the other pick for this. I look at how much he developed across this season from a player who came in very raw, clearly very talented, has tons of offensive upside and physical attributes that should make you very excited if you're a coach getting to work with this. In terms of clay, you're sculpting with Michelangelo here. Was Michelangelo a sculptor? Doesn't matter. Maybe it was Donatello. Whoever the Italian dude in the Renaissance who did sculptures is, that is your opportunity to work with here. There were defensive concerns. I watched him in the rookie showcase. I watched him in the NHL preseason. I went, there is work to be done. And he got the buy-in with some kind of fierce nudging from his teammates there to kind of get his act together. And at the end of the season, 47 points in 72 games, making the all-rookie team, one of the highest scoring defensemen in the league, one of the highest scoring rookies in the league, is a really impressive feat. The only other rookie I could have seen topping him would have been Joshua Waugh had he stayed in the AHL longer. Waugh put up 32 points in 41 AHL games, playing when the Rocket were not very good at that time. He didn't get a chance to really play a ton of those games when the Rocket kind of got their act together. Had he done so, I wouldn't have been shocked if he led the team in scoring by the end of the year. He went up and he looked great in the NHL. That's why he was up there. He looked fantastic in that regard. He is definitely somebody that I think would have also been in the running. My third place one is going to go to Brandon Gignac. He was the veteran at the beginning of the year, just trying to keep everything together here. All that speed, that scoring that he was putting up, constantly putting up points in every single game, it got him an NHL contract. And you know what? Good for him. It got him an NHL contract, and it got him another year on his deal for next season. That's just really, really smart business by the Montreal Canadiens. And honestly, depending on what they do with Gabriel Bourque, probably your team captain next year, if not him. Maybe if Toby Paquette-Bisson comes back, I could see it being him. Bisson had a pretty good season, 27 points in 69 nice games this season. Honestly, really impressive. It's hard for me to not look at that and be like, there were pieces here. It's just, and you can go read or go listen to my, I almost said funeral, post-mortem of this team here. But this was a young team clearly trying to put it all together. Xavier Simoneau should be back next year, full strength after his shoulder injury. Might compete for an NHL spot depending on how his camp goes. Emil Heineman hopefully has a bounce back here. He put up 15 goals this year, but you were expecting a little bit more. Sean Farrell battled injuries, had flashes playing with Joshua Waugh of a very talented winger playmaker in there. And at the end of the year, just a lack of quality on the line kind of hurts that. Is Jared Davidson going to bounce back from his injury? He was just finding his game when he, suffered his season-ending injury. Can Riley Kidney figure out the next step? You see it, and then it's gone. You see it, and then it's gone. You're hoping for more from one of the Canadiens' second-round picks there. And then just going down the defense, there's just so many names in here, guys that didn't play a ton of games. David Reinbacher will be here next year. You had call-ups from the ECHL that played a handful of games and just went back down. Luke Tuck played a couple of games at the end of the year. He's going to be back. Florian Jacki is going to be back next year. You're going to have a young team again. Not counting Owen Beck potentially. Adam Engstrom's going to be coming in here. You don't know where Lane Hutson's going to potentially end up out of all these things. This is going to be another young team next year, but it's a team that could put together a really strong thing here with the rookies that played this year, guiding the other rookies. Getting the right veterans in place too makes all the difference. You look at a couple years ago when they went on their playoff run, they were led by proper, not to dismiss that Mitchell Stevens and everyone other, Mitchell Stevens was a part of that, but you were hoping for more veterans to help kind of guide and get this ship on right. And I think they're going to have a very interesting offseason this year. So yeah, player of the year, you definitely have Jakub Dobish, Logan Mailloux is going to finish at number 3. Logan Mailloux finished number 2. Brandon Gignac will finish number 3. My most improved, William Trudeau, went from being an afterthought to bouncing back to being a very good defenseman at the end of the season there. He's someone that I think next year is going to be, I don't want to say make or break, but I definitely could see him taking that step forward. 24 points in 70 games isn't crazy, but considering how poorly he started the season, he really found his game, and that's important for the Rocket. And now we're going to transition this one more time. We're going to the NHL, and we're going to talk about who's the shining star up there. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but we're going to talk about that coming up next. But first, hold on, game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go, and I know what you're saying. Hey, we already talked about this, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can build up your team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes that you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums or even bigger prizes. Cool new playing pieces for travel all the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vault. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, and a ton including their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or even rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or in the App Store. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, viewers of all ages. I don't actually know how the rest of that introduction goes. It's been a while. We're going to move on to the NHL for our Player of the Year awards. And this one, we're just going to kind of rip the Band-Aid off. This one shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Nick Suzuki is our Player of the Year in the NHL. I don't know how a dude playing through the pandemic, the year before that, a bad team, a worse team, another lottery team, and has not missed a game in 4 seasons, continues to increase his scoring totals. Just an absolute monster of a player right now on so many levels. And I think that not naming him, Player of the Year for this would kind of, I don't want to say be sacrilegious, but is kind of sacrilegious. He's the team captain, led the team with 77 points in 82 games, 33 goals, 44 assists. He's just that dude. And Nick Suzuki this year took that step in a season where everyone's like, well, what's he going to do without Kirby Dach? He had Kirby Dach for a game and a quarter, and then he didn't have him. And then this team was doing the death spiral, and then all of a sudden the first line came together, and everything just didn't matter after that. That first line, if I could, I would give the entire first line this award, but that's not how this show works, and I need to be able to talk for another 5 to 6 minutes to fill out the content here. But Nick Suzuki is far and away the Player of the Year on this team. And I don't really think that's up for debate in this season here. Cole Caulfield, also really strong bounce back season. I know we wanted 40 goals, and it looked like he was going to get there. He finished with 28 goals, 37 assists, 65 points in 82 games. But we saw an improvement of Caulfield on the defensive side of the puck, just more aware. Better defensively is really important. And I think next year, again, we're going to see that maturation. You could see that entire top line score 30 goals next year. My runner-up to Nick Suzuki is going to be Mike Matheson, though. And I know people are going to go, but what about the gaffes and this? Without Mike Matheson on this team, the defense would potentially be one of the most horrifying things you've ever watched. I love the prospects that are on this team, but Mike Matheson is the straw that stirs that very, very slow drink right now. Caden Gooley has the ability to move the puck. Arbor Jack, I can do it. Jordan Harris can do it. Jaden Struble can do it. Justin Barron can do it. But no one can do it quite like Mike Matheson. Looking at his shorthanded goals this year alone, Mike Matheson does things that we haven't seen a Canadiens defenseman do since PK Subban was in his prime, winning trophies here with the Montreal Canadiens. 11 goals, 51 assists, 62 points. First defenseman to top 60 points since PK Subban, I believe. Just an incredible year. And a guy that I know people are like, well, what if they trade him? What about the value? Sky high. I don't want to see this defense without Mike Matheson next year, because then your veteran leader is David Savard, and God bless David Savard. Love the guy to death. Probably one of the nicest dudes. That's all I ever hear about him. But David Savard is not your number one defenseman. Mike Matheson can be that guy. And they threw the prospects right out there in the deep end. They said, Logan Mailloux, you're called up. You're playing next to Mike Matheson in your first NHL game. 25 minutes. Great. No worse for wear. And then with David Savard, they said, Lane Hutson, you're playing your first NHL games. Here you go. You're with David Savard. 2 assists. Looked fantastic. It's so hard to understate that how important Mike Matheson is. And I think getting the rest of the defense healthy, a year more experience, and maybe just a little less snake bitten across the board will help out with that. Can Gouli take that next step? Can Arbor Xhekaj bounce back after what has been kind of a frustrating year for him? 10 points in 44 games for Arbor Xhekaj, 11 in 17 in the AHL. Seemed to kind of be rounding into form, then lost the rest of his season to a shoulder injury, which hopefully he is good coming into camp next year. The most improved, Juraj Slafkovsky runs away with this award. Nobody who went from maybe he should just go into the AHL this year to this would not be that. Juraj Slafkovsky looked lost, played one game against Vancouver where everything seemed to click into place, and then just didn't look back. A torrid pace to end the season, ends with 50 points in 82 games after barely scoring in the first half of the season. By far the most improved player on this team. But I don't want to just shout out the guys that we expected more of. The guys that we didn't maybe expect as much of, we thought we had written them off, get them off the books, get them out of here. Brendan Gallagher and Yoel Armia. Both of them hit double-digit goals. Gallagher 16, Armia 17. Armia had 8 assists, Gallagher had 15. Maybe not worth the full contract, but looking at the way they played the back half of the season when this team needed veterans to step up in the absence of other players. Alex Newhook was hurt. You had some of the other players that just couldn't carry this load all the way on their own. You had AHL guys centering the fourth line. You had wingers centering the fourth. You were doing the best you could. They stepped up down the stretch. Yeah, they still lost games, but you saw guys figuring out what they need to do to score goals in their current roles. Yoel Armia was fantastic at that. Brendan Gallagher looked like himself back then, as the season came around. He's not, ripping top shelf snipes anymore, but he's getting in there. He's getting greasy. He's getting deflections. He's getting tap-ins. He's getting rebounds. He's doing everything that you want. And then also I got to shout out Jake Evans. Someone that went from I'm the fourth line center this year to, oh my God, I'm whatever other role out there. A monster on faceoffs, an incredible penalty killer, a guy who got rewarded for some strong play. Only 7 goals, but I look at his role on this team, and that was so good. Also should probably shout out both Caden Primo and Samuel Montembeault. An onslaught all year. Jake Allen, RIP in New Jersey, my friend. I'm sorry about that. Honestly, just really, really impressive stuff across the board from those guys here. I'm excited about this team next year. If, and I say if, can Josh Anderson figure it out? Cool. That's a huge bonus. Kirby Dach is back. Joshua Waugh will probably be a full-time NHL player next year. We'd love that as well. Who's going to step up? Is Owen Beck going to make the team? What does a healthy Christian Dvorak do, if anything, this year? There's so many things to like, and you look at the guys who are already shining, that top line there, and you're going to build around that and build up. It's hard for me to not say that this team is Nick Suzuki's team. He is your player of the year, Mike Matheson, and then Cole Caulfield in third. And then I'll put Juraj Slafkovsky / Samuel Montembeault in the fourth spot there. Just a really, really strong season for them overall. We do want to hear from you. Who are your AHL players of the year? Who are your AHL players of the year? Who are your prospects of the year? You can tweet us at @LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. Let us know. Put it in the subject line. Shout it from the rooftops. Just don't be rude. You can follow me on Twitter at Scott Matla. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. You can find this show wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube.com. Just search Locked On Canadiens wherever you listen. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you all next time.